Today's lesson is Chapter 8, Lesson 8, which can be found on pages 595 through 600. Our objective is I can change a fraction into a decimal. Question 1. The first step to change a fraction into a decimal is to divide the numerator by the blank. Question 2. A repeating fraction is a fraction that goes on blank.
In the last section, we learned how to convert some special base 10 fractions into decimals, and vice versa. Now we're going to learn how to convert any fraction into a decimal. And it turns out to be really simple. All you have to do is divide. Since a fraction is really just a division problem, if you go ahead and do the division, you'll get an answer. And that answer will be the decimal value of the fraction. Now there's two ways we can do the division. The easy way and the hard way. Now, just because I'm mean, we're going to start with the hard way. Let's take the fraction 1/2 and convert it into a regular division problem with this division symbol. Now all we have to do is follow the procedure for division. We just see how many times this 2 divides into this 1. Uh-oh, but this won't divide any times. 2 is bigger than 1. Looks like we're going to need some help. And that's where the decimal point comes in. Now you remember that in the last section, we learned that 1 could be written as 1.0 or 1.00 or 1.000, and its value is still 1. Let's try doing that here and see what happens. After the 1, put a decimal point and then a 0 in the tenths place. Now our division problem looks like 10 divided by 2, and that's easy to do. The only difference is we have a decimal point. Let's ignore the decimal point for a minute and pretend that our problem really is 10 divided by 2. So 2 will go into 10 5 times, because 5 times 2 equals 10, and that leaves no remainder. So we're done, right? Not so fast. We've got that decimal point to deal with. And we know that 5 can't be the answer because 5 is bigger than 1/2. We just need to include the decimal point in our answer for it to be correct. We put it directly above the decimal point in our problem. There. Now our answer is 0.5, or 0.5, which is the more proper way to write it. So by dividing, we figured out that the decimal value of 1/2 is 0.5. Now let's more the hard way. Let's find the decimal value of 1/3 by dividing 1 by 3. Again, 3 is too big to divide into 1, so we'll need to use a decimal point and another 0, which makes our problem look like 10 divided by 3. That's easy. 3 goes into 10 3 times, because 3 times 3 equals 9, and that leaves a remainder of 1. Just like before, we don't want a remainder, so let's use another 0 so we can keep on dividing. And that gives us 10 divided by 3 again. Well, we know that 3 goes into 10 3 times and leaves a remainder of 1. Still a remainder of 1. Well, it looks like we're going to need another 0. But that's just going to give us 10 divided by 3 again, which is going to give us another remainder of 1. This looks like it might keep on going forever. Some fractions are like that. If you divide them, you'll see a repeating pattern of numbers that continues on forever. So the decimal value of 1/3 is 0.33333333, and 3's that keep on going forever. But since we can't keep writing 3's forever, we can just stop and round the number off. Or we can use this special symbol that means this number repeats forever. Alright, so all we have to do to convert a fraction into a decimal is divide. So far, we've been doing that the hard way. But now, we're going to do it the easy way. We're going to use a calculator. Let's try a couple with a calculator and see what we get. To convert 1/4.
Okay, here's an example in your book. I'm on page 595. So another way to do this, like we saw in the video, you can do regular division, which you know how to do from dividing decimals. But if you have a decimal or a fraction that has a denominator of 5 or 10, you can make that into a decimal pretty easily. So if you have 2/5, for example, you could know an equivalent fraction of that would be 10 as your denominator. So if you multiply numerator and denominator by 2, you would get 4/10. Well, you know that 4/10 can be written as a decimal. 4/10 down here. Oops, not let me circle. Okay, 4/10 down here. So that's one way you could do it, knowing that you can change it to an equivalent fraction. So another way to change it to an equivalent fraction would be if it is a number that could be multiplied and has a multiple of 100, because we know 100th, and same with thousands. So for example, 11/25, we know that if we multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 4, we would get 44 hundredths. So if you remember from reading fractions and decimals, we would write that as 44 hundredths and read it as 44 hundredths. All right, so go ahead and answer these two questions in the form, please.